Hi everyone, hope you had another lovely day. Typical, the sun has just started to come out now when I'm obviously wrapped up warm because it's got a bit cold this afternoon. This evening I didn't know what I was going to be making, to be honest with you. Before we went to bed last night I took some chicken out of the freezer and thought I'll just have a think throughout the day as to what we might have, and I finally asked my other half what he fancied for tea, and he gave me the option of either chicken curry or chicken lasagna. Dog's about to go out in a minute, you're going to hear the flap. There we go, bang on cue. Because we have done the one pot chicken curry recipe at work quite a lot, I decided I would go for the lasagna. So what I've already done in my pot here, I already have little cubes, diced cubed chicken, fried in garlic and chilli oil, which is my preference, and with a little onion and a couple of spring onions left over from the garden. So I have already parboiled this for you to speed things up. So that would be the first stage, is to fry off your onion and your bits of chicken. Now you can cut the chicken up as big or as small as you would like, but I would like to make quite a good size lasagna, and I just feel I'd rather have more chicken throughout my sauce, so I've cut it up quite small. Now that the chicken and the onion are all fried off, I'm going to add a little flour, and as many of you will now know, this is to add as a thickening agent, but also to soak up any fat, because the last thing you want is the fat coming through the sauce and floating at the top of your lasagna. So we want to stir that in and cook it out so that the sauce doesn't taste floury, which would be very nice. And then I'm going to add a little milk at a time. Again, this is a difficult one, guys, for me to give you exact amounts because it depends on the amount of chicken you're using. You could go to a recipe and follow an actual recipe, but because I'm only making really enough for two, I've only used a couple of small chicken breasts and just utilised the oil that I actually fried everything in. So my rule of thumb is just add a little milk at a time, and you're wanting to get a nice creamy textured sauce. So just keep adding the milk until you feel it's a nice creamy consistency, and I'll show you in a wee minute what I mean. Add a little more, because the last thing I want is it too runny, albeit once we add in the pasta it's going to soak up some of the sauce, so again you don't want it too dry either. A lot happening this evening. We've got dogs running about, we've got phones going. Apologies guys, but unfortunately this is my home, and things unfortunately do carry on going on. So that's looking quite nice. Quite pleased with that. Now just while that's doing a final thickening up, the other ingredients I obviously have are my lasagna sheets. I've got some grated cheese that I took out the freezer only a little while ago. It doesn't actually have to be defrosted, but I decided it looked nicer in the dish than in the packet. Plus the fact cameraman is standing right at my fridge freezer, so would be ideal. And I have my lasagna dish. You can actually buy square or oblong dishes that actually see lasagna on them specifically for lasagna. But this is just an oval shaped casserole dish that I'm going to use. It's one of my favourite ones actually. And I have greased it. And what I greased it with was my Frylight spray, which is quite healthy and it doesn't make it too greasy. I've also left out my smoked paprika, and I've also got some parsley. I used that in my oil when I first fried off the chicken and the onion, But when I finish the lasagna, I like to sprinkle a little parsley and a little paprika over the top of mine for extra flavour and also a nice decoration on the top. But I'll show you that in a minute. So that is just thickened up beautifully. Sometimes when you don't stand and watch over something, it tends to work out a lot better. So I can take that off. I'll put my kettle over to the other side. It's starting to bubble away. And now all we have to do is layer it up. Really quite simple, this one. In fact, the chicken lasagna I think is a much easier recipe than the mince one, because you're doing your mince or your steak, if you decide to do steak mince, or steak lumps of steak, you've got that to cook in the sauce with the carrots and the onions. Then you've got a cheese or a white sauce to make separately, whereas this can just be made all together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little of the mixture. In fact, I'll be here all day if I use that spoon. So I'll just ditch the wooden spoon. So a little sauce on the bottom, just a thin covering. Okay, and then if you can use a whole piece of lasagna and fit it on, great. And if you had a square or an oblong dish, that would be a lot easier to do. But because I've got an odd shape, what I'm going to do is just break my lasagna up. As many of you guys that come to my classes will already have been told, if you have too much pasta overlapping each other, you find it doesn't cook as well, and you might find you've got some raw bits. So I just break it up, because it's all going to soften anyway. So I put a layer of pasta on, and then another layer of the sauce. Ideally you want to try and end with a sauce, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So I'm going to leave just a little bit there and then sprinkle some bits over. And the reason you don't want to finish with pasta is if it's not completely covered, you do find that it will curl up in the oven and crispen up a bit too much. So I like to end with a sauce layer and almost cover as much of the pasta as you can. And just try and make sure, if you just, even with your spoon, try and submerge as much of the pasta as you can underneath the sauce. And then all I'm going to do is finish off with a good sprinkle of cheese. So any bits of pasta that you see sticking up just now, you can cover with your cheese layer, and that'll prevent it from crisping up in the oven. And there you have it. A lovely chicken lasagna. And to finish off, as I said a wee minute ago, I'm just going to put a sprinkle of parsley over the top. You don't have to do this. You could use something else. You could have mixed herbs, some oregano if you wanted, or just leave it plain. And then I've got one of these smoked paprika that's got the shaker holes on the top, and just a little paprika over the top. Bob's your uncle. One chicken lasagna. I will put this in the oven in a half an hour at 6 o'clock, and that'll slowly cook through till 7 o'clock before we're ready to eat. And once I've finished it, I'll take a photograph of it, and hopefully if I remember when it goes on the plate, I'll take another photo just to let you see what it looks like. Hope you've enjoyed that, guys. I'll look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Stay safe. Bye for now.